afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, genius economist, venture capitalist, and political analyst and strategist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical, political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a continued discussion on the first 100 days of the second Trump administration is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Hello again. It's Wednesday, 6:30. We have a regular date, you and I. You are my shared deliverers of this podcast, my cohorts. If it's a good program, you're overwhelmingly responsible. If it's not a great program, I take the blame. So I want to thank you for the role you play and for the feedback I get from you that helps me become smarter. Not necessarily correct, but I develop insights that I didn't have before your criticism. Sometimes it's a little too strong. It's meant to be maybe constructive criticism, and I use it as constructive criticism, but it's sometimes said in ways that could be hurtful if you don't appreciate some of the validity of what the critic is propounding. So I appreciate your involvement, and I love getting back together with you every Wednesday at 6:30. Hold on one second. Have trouble with the equipment? Oh. Anyway, so we can launch right now, and as I regularly reconfirm, repeat. Wait, my producer's fixing some of the equipment. I regularly repeat and remind you that this program, sadly, like most programs that attract any listeners at all, deal with the bad news, because good news is not exciting. You know, I mentioned this a number of times. I had some young group came to me, very attractive young men and women. They started a company and had a beautiful business plan, well written. I think they may have paid something like $50,000 or more to prepare the business plan, to present the deck, to convince me that it's a winner. And as I went through the presentation, I thought it was a brilliant presentation, but very unexciting, because they did exciting. Good news could be exciting as an event, but not people that so interested that it makes the front page of the newspaper or the cover of a magazine. Or the only things that make it is something drastic, something terrible, a tsunami, a fire that's burning half of California, massive slaughters by some maniac who goes into a school and kills a bunch of little kids. all of that makes the front page. So I told them, you guys put together a great presentation, but I'm sorry, I don't see the viability of that. I don't think it can be successful. And to this day, it's never come out of them, but taken off. So by virtue of its what we deal with, current events, political events, the craziness of our leaders in Washington or local leaders, mayors and governors, that those actions make the front page regularly, and that's what attracts people to read the paper, buy the paper, listen to the programs, whatever the media. So by virtue of what we do every week here, we talk about the events that make the news, and they're all, almost all, universally negative. If there's some good news on the economy, it's in the head of the business section, but not the front page. It has to be something really dramatic. So I have to apologize for bringing you something that's likely, if you're normal, to depress you, to get you, disappointed in our leadership, in our country's values and our culture. So to offset that, I present you with a book on happiness. That's the goal of every human being, I believe, to accomplish in one's lifetime. And so I like to start off by giving you at least one idea. I can't give you all of the great ideas that's in this book that's right in front of you on the screen. The book that I wrote and my daughter helped me finish because I was working on it for 10 years. And every time I thought I should make it even better and more comprehensive. So she helped wrap it up. And she's written about 10 books. So she's very effective that way. So Rookie and I issued this book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And the punchline on the bottom of the cover, you can't see it, at least on my screen, I don't see it. It says, how to be happy no matter what. And it's a litany of all of the wisdom of the great philosophers, of the great religious leaders, of those that write inspirational approaches to life, to be more joyous, to be more successful, to pursue the route that is likely to increase your happiness, to make you absolutely happy. That's like a wish that could never be fulfilled because there's always adversities and negative events beyond your control. But this book, which I wrote to help my kids, I have 80 grandchildren and with son-in-laws and 4 daughters, a total of over 100, 104 or something, family members. And so I wanted to give them as much wisdom as I could in this area. So I started to write this book for the benefit of my own children, immediate family, my own children, all my loved ones, my best friends, and indeed the members of my community, the members of my country, my fellow human beings throughout the world. That's my goal. Eliminate wars, eliminate all the negatives that we can, the killings of each other, and produce an environment that will make everybody smile and laugh and help others feel good. So the one idea I'll give you tonight along those lines is to convince you, or you got to be convinced yourself, that you're the boss, you're the managing director of your life. Most things in life happen to us. Most people say, "Oh my God, that's what happened. That's as if they're totally out of control. It has nothing to do with them, and they have to live through the punishment or the adversities." But my view is that if you take the attitude and you are the boss of your own mind and your own thoughts, you should definitely have the right attitude. It's all in the attitude. If you have the right attitude, there was a bishop, head of I think the Marble Church in Manhattan, Steen. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the name right, but he wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. And if you're positive about life, positive things will happen. And a lot of people, they fail at something, they think they're failures, and for the rest of their life, they tend to be ineffective. They have this view, I'm a failure. Even though it's beyond their control in many cases, and we all fail. Everybody who tries something worthwhile and difficult fails. As I pointed out many times, some young man came to Thomas Edison and asked him, "How come you failed 1,000 times pursuing the development of the phone, the telephone? You failed 1,000, or electricity, and not the telephone.
Light bulb.
The light bulb, right? You failed 1,000 times, and you never gave up. How could you be so stubborn and so indifferent to failure when most people, if after one or two attempts, or 10 attempts, give up?" So Edison said to this young man, he says, "Who told you I failed 1,000 times?" So the young man says, "Everybody knows it. They talk about it all the time. And at one of my courses, the professor talked about it." He says, "Well, your professor was wrong, and I never failed once." So he says, so the young man says, "So how come everybody knows that about you, that you failed 1,000 times?" He says, "Young man, I succeeded in finding out what didn't work 1,000 times. So by persevering and still pursuing my dream, my goal, I ultimately got to the finish line, and all those failures, each failure brought me closer." As Babe Ruth once said, "Every time I deal with a strike, I know I'm one strike closer to having another home run." And that's the attitude you should have. Be the managing director, be in control, be the supervisor, so you can influence your life. Don't let life happen to you. Be the master to the extent possible. We can't control everything, that our health, who we're born to, so many things that are so dominant in producing your happiness, one's happiness, we have no control over it. But, some people are born as Donald Trump was, with a silver spoon or even a diamond spoon or a gold spoon, where he got $4 million or more from his father when he was like 1 year old. He likes to say he made it on his own as a self-starter. He did make the presidency on his own, that's for sure. So you can be the one that determines the destiny of your future. So even if you have negative results, even have reversals that devastate you, just move on. Just move. The Queen Elizabeth said, just stay calm and move on. And that's the secret. Move on. So you decide, pick a goal. It's important to have a purpose in life. Otherwise, you're here like a rock or like an animal without purpose, except to get the next meal, to get fed and stay alive. So you can create your own destiny. So now I'm telling you, if you want to be happy and make other people happy, decide right now that you're in charge and you're going to be happy and you're going to be smiling all the time, and do a good deed as if it's possible, at least one good deed every single day. If it's something as simple as helping somebody who's blind cross the street, or somebody who's having trouble walking, assisting them to move along. There's so many things you could do that don't take a lot of effort, but make you feel good. I've found that once I made money, I came out of Harvard Business School broke. I went back with 3 little children, 5, 4, and 2, and had zero money. Harvard, I am indebted to Harvard forever because they have a very large endowment. And once I got accepted, that was their policy. Once you got accepted, met their criteria to be a success, they took you in, they gave you scholarship, fellowship, cash. They paid for, at that time they didn't have dormitories or housing for married students with kids. So they paid for an apartment off campus for me. They paid for furniture, used furniture for me. They were phenomenal. I paid them back many times over, and praise the people who arranged that, the ones that gave the money to provide that endowment. I praise them every day. And instead of doing what many of my classmates who graduated Harvard Business School with me, who became successes like I did, going from being totally broke and not even being able to rent an apartment when they came back from Boston, to being a multimillionaire by the time I was 40. I got out of Harvard Business School when I was 30, class of 59, 1959. And I had the ability to do as my other contemporaries from Harvard, my classmates, or my contemporaries on Wall Street, who all likewise were very successful by the time they're 40, in which case almost every one of them, the first thing they did was get their own jet plane so they didn't have to wait online. They didn't have to go through security. They could come and go whenever they like. They didn't have to adhere to some schedule by an airline. So that they got, which is one of the great joys, I guess. If you got money, get your own jet. They also, in almost every case, got a mansion in the Hamptons and or in a mansion in the Caribbean or in Paris, or in the case of two of them, they got their own island. And I decided, even though I dreamed of those things when I was younger, that I'm going to take my success and make other people's lives better. So I gave money to scholarships for medical students who couldn't afford to pay the tuition, much less the maintenance. I gave them enough money to pay the tuition and to pay their living expenses while they were at the university, at the medical school. And till this day, 50 years and longer, more than 50 years, I get beautiful letters. I get a lot from right after they graduate or even during they're attending the medical school, thanking me, saying, Mr. Davis, I want to tell you how much I appreciate it. I could have never become a doctor or a major medical researcher without your help. And that is so thrilling. That's better than any jet or any mansion or even owning your own island. So I've over the years done that. I've gotten hundreds of letters from students and that I backed to achieve those goals. And I built schools in my own vicinity, a graduate rabbinical college, and a great boys' high school, the best in the area. People try to get in. It gives me so much joy to go to these graduations and the people come up to me at graduation or even years later when I stop at the college or at the high school. The teachers thank me, the principals thank me, the students thank me. I don't know anything more joyous, and it's really, in the terms of cost, much less than a jet or a mansion on an island, or even an island for sure. So that's been my joy. I smile when I give them this, when I provide it. I laugh with them. I enjoy, I visit with them, and it gives me more gratification than any asset. Assets come and go. You can lose them. You can address them to things that are just self-indulgent but totally wasteful. So my life has been fulfilled by doing that, and that led to the publication of this book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. So take control of your life. You're the boss. Be positive. Have an attitude of gratitude. Count your blessings every day. When I talk to you in the book, I'll tell you how you count your blessings, not how much money you have in the bank or what airplane you own or what house you own but rather the things that you did for others that make you happy, or that you just smile at others and help them laugh and help them overcome some major difficulty they're going through. There's nothing more gratifying. So that's my advice to you. Go to your best friend when he's gone through trouble. If he lost somebody very important to his life, somebody as close as his mother or his child, there's nothing I can say to that person. I can't say what Solomon said, this too shall pass, even though we know that that's a good saying, because everything does pass if you hang around long enough. But some people never get over that. And I try to get them to realize that what they're going through is so hurtful that I share their hurt and I empathize with them. And I wish I could change that, but that's not changeable. And then I start to talk, after I do a lot of that, about things that make him or her look to the future. I said, remember last year we had such a great time skiing in Vermont, and we're scheduled to go this October again. And I can't wait to be with you. We sat at night at the front of the fireplace. The next day we got into our skis and our warm clothing and had fun, and as the snow was falling on us. And he said, oh yeah, that was the best. And you get them off the immediate devastating trauma they're going through. So do that for yourself too. Be your own best friend. Give yourself a pep talk. If things go bad or you have losses or you have adversity, say it's not you, it's life. And give yourself encouragement. Say, this is one single event, like Edison. It's anything that's negative is part of your growth, your learning process, and that makes you a better person and more capable of enjoying life and producing a better life. So that's just one word of advice, limited because of the time. I can only give you that. I could spend hours talking about all the philosophers that I quote in my book, all the inspirational speakers and guides that charge tons of money, the psychiatrists that give advice, the religious leaders, the professors and teachers, all those that try to help you to enjoy a better life, to appreciate life more. I tried to include them in this book. Dale Carnegie, who wrote a book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And just being positive immediately, changes your mood. I remember one time when I was very young and very negligent, I had accumulated a number of tickets, parking tickets and traffic violation tickets, and I kept getting letters threatening from the Motor Vehicle Bureau, from the district attorney's office even, that if I don't clear these up, they're going to bring me to trial and with very dire consequences. And I was in a terrible mood. I was depressed. And my brother-in-law came over. He's a rabbi and a scholar and an advisor to people on how to live a better life. And he asked me, what's the problem? And I told him, I got all these tickets piled up and I don't know where to begin. It'll cost me a fortune to take care of them. So he said to me, Morty, just start with one. take care of the first ticket, then the next, and the minute I did that, I followed his advice that I paid the first ticket, I started to feel better. Then I did the second and the third, and I saw that it's a problem that I could overcome if I just address it and work at it. And it showed me that with the right advice and with the right attitude, you can overcome things that overwhelm you, and many people cause cancer, not cancer, cause suicides because they don't see a way out of the dilemma they're in. Even though it's solvable, it's not the end of the world. But when you're overwhelmed, you just lose rationality. So in doing this book, I gathered all the greatest advisors on happiness, all the greatest priests and rabbis and philosophers and writers on the subject. And it's a comprehensive book. It's 365 pages. As a matter of fact, the most dangerous part of this book is you can get a hernia carrying it around. But it's one page for every one page of inspiration and humor and jokes and advice on how to live a happier life and how to be able to make other people happier and feel good about that. So, while I gave you one small idea out of the book on how to deal with life, most importantly, count your blessings, and even what your blessings are that you don't even realize. I point out, till you lose it, you don't realize that's your most important asset, your health, or your eyesight, or your. There's one rabbi on the West Coast, a genius, and he came to visit me when I was out at a hotel in Santa Monica at Pritigan. My wife and I are trying to lose 10, 20 pounds. And he came over with his 4 kids. And he was telling me that every morning he says to his kids, did you get up and thank God that your eyes work, your fingers work, you could see nature, you could see color, your taste buds work, all the things that give you joy. Do you ever thank God for those wonderful assets that you control? And the reason he said he evolved that is because his 4th kid was born blind, and he wanted to acquaint the other kids how important are things that we take for granted. Somebody that's gone through a major accident or through advanced stage 4 cancer or some other thing that delimits them. They lose their eyesight, they lose their uh, their feelings, everything. And it's only after they recover, if they recover, that they realize, oh my God, all that money doesn't matter, nothing that I always considered my major assets was so crucial and vital. And now that I could open my eyes in the morning to look out the window and see nature and see green leaves and red roses and hold things, see my fingers move, I realize how fortunate I am. Those are the real assets, and we take it for granted when we wake up in the morning. I bet 99% of us never think, oh, I'm so lucky my eyes worked this morning, or my hands worked this morning, or my feet can walk and run. It's when most people in that condition never recover, but the ones that do recover suddenly realize all the rest is nothing. The real assets are the ones. And there's a song like that was popular in my day. It's called "The Best Things in Life Are Free." The sun in the morning, the moon at night, the sand on the beach, the waves on the ocean, all things that if you stop and stare at them and think about them, and you walk through a forest and appreciate all that's going on around you. Most of us walk through a forest and say, "Oh, it's nice trees" or something. A zoologist walks through, and at each tree he sees God's magic. He has a different name for it. So enjoy the things that are out there that are yours to enjoy, and do it before you get this kind of trauma and tragedy. So without further ado, I'm going to suggest one thing, that the fastest way to get there is get a copy of this book and on your screen, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. And on the bottom of the page is the comment, how to be happy no matter what. I can't see it on my screen because it's cut off. But this book will teach you how to be happy no matter what. And we all go through terrible events in life. We live any length of time. None of us go through life without some reversal, some major disappointment, some irreplaceable tragedy, something that's so hurtful you think you could never overcome it. And the ones that deal with it and address it and make a positive out of every negative, as Edison did. So even somebody who loses a child, some people I've known, a guy I worked with at a Wall Street firm, his family was the wealthiest in New Hampshire. They were so wealthy that after the Lindbergh's child was kidnapped and killed, the father hired around the clock
private security
guys that carried a gun and would make sure they'd never get kidnapped. And he said one day, we were so lucky to have these caretakers, 24 hours a day. They had 3 shifts. They had each shift brought in another guy with a gun. One day, one of the security guards, one of the what are they called? That the president has around them, Secret Service. One of the security guards was loading his pistol and didn't realize that he had bullets loaded in, and accidentally pressed the trigger and shot his sister through the head. And he said after that, his mother wound up in a mental institution. His father wound up an alcoholic. They never functioned again. So with all the blessings of immense wealth, that it was the wealthiest family in New Hampshire. He owned all the textiles. Everybody worked for him. So that's not the real wealth. The real wealth is your family, your loved one, and your health, your friends, and your community, and your countrymen, and your fellow human beings. Learn to love them. We should cut out all wars and stop sending our young, our most valuable assets, our young men and women between, say, 17 and 30 to fight other young men and give them equipment that kill as many as fast as they can. They have no animosity towards the other young men. They don't know them, but they're sent to kill. And absent the government doing that, those two could be best friends, even though they're shooting at each other now. And they could be developing new great products together instead of ending each other's lives. So just be positive and keep on having a goal that's worthwhile. And one of the goals surely should be do something nice to another human being as often as you can, so you get a good feeling and you ultimately get good feedback and you go to heaven after you die. You go to the Garden of Eden. You are rewarded. So without further ado, so I wanted to tell you, this book, all the people that have bought it, not all the people get in touch with me, but many of the people that purchased the book have called me or written to me and say how much they appreciate it. They read one page a day, although it's not required to read it sequentially, or you could read the whole book in one day. But it's not a book just to read. It's a book that teaches you to change your life such that you will be happy every day of your life. So they write me the nicest, or they call me, tell me the nicest things. And so as a consequence, I know that I can make this offer without a problem because nobody's taken me up on this offer yet. But it's the best deal you ever get. If you purchase this book, or even if you get it as a gift, and you don't feel it was a great uh, addition to your life and to your ability to be happy, send me the purchase slip or get the purchase slip from the individual that gave you the gift, and I will refund the purchase price by double. If you paid $25 or whatever for the book, I will send you $50, and you can keep the book and still hopefully get to use it and enjoy it when you realize how good it is. So my advice to you is run out and get this book right away. You'll be elated. And if you get $50 for $25, even if you don't like it, but don't buy 100 books and then send me 100 times 25. You spend $2,500 and I'll have to send you $5,000. I know that'll make you happy. So without further ado, let me thank my guest again. I invite him back more often than the other guests, and I've invited rabbis and priests and doctors and psychiatrists and inspirational speakers, every kind. But the guest that I find is most acquainted with the current events and can make it most interesting and exciting is Len Carter, who graduated at the top of his class at Ivy League School, Cornell, at Harvard Business School, the same one I graduated from, the best business school in the world, and the great school school in California that develops all the techies, Stanford, Googled two young Jewish Russians who were at Stanford, and in their garage part-time, they developed Google. They became billionaires. And he graduated top of his class from that school as he's an electrical engineer. It's such a specialty, I can't even pronounce it. So without further ado, let me have Len Carter once again lead this program and open the discussion on this week's exciting events. Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Morty. Thank you, Morty, for having me back. Always a pleasure. Last week we started talking about the first 100 days of the second Trump administration. So much happened in the first 100 days that we need another time to discuss it. In fact, I'm starting to worry now that it's going to take 100 days just to talk about the first 100 days. But I thought we'd start off just with a few statements and interesting things that came out from President Trump's interview this past weekend with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press, where she talked with him about a variety of topics, from the economy to his future political plans and things. But here's just a few of the comments he made, just to sort of set the stage for some of the issues that we'll talk about. On the economy, including the first decline in GDP in years, because since I think 2022, GDP has been going up every quarter, and then this was the first quarter in all that time where we saw a decline, which means if there's another decline next quarter, that's officially recession. Trump said, "I think the good parts are the Trump economy, and the bad parts are the Biden economy, because he's done a terrible job." So not taking any blame and all the credit for what may be happening. On the 145% tariffs on Chinese imports, he says the U.S. doesn't have to waste money on a trade deficit with China for things we don't need, for junk that we don't need. Okay, well, I guess defining what imports are junk and what's not might be up to the consumer, but that's his belief. On running for a third term, we've had a discussion many times on what we think will follow 2028. At least for now, Trump's saying so many people want me to do it, run for a third term, but this is not something I'm looking to do. Usually he likes to troll the interviewer by kind of dangling the possibility of somehow being a third term president. But this time he actually came out and said, I'm not looking to do that. I think one of the biggest surprises that I hear repeated on other news stations and programs is his response to the question about due process being afforded to deportees, deported undocumented. He was asked if he believed that non-citizens, as well as citizens, but non-citizens in particular, are entitled to due process if due process is required to follow the Constitution, given how many hearings or trials would have to happen to afford due process. And his response was, I don't know, which is, as you can imagine, was a little disturbing for many people to hear, that the president would question whether or not due process guaranteed under the Constitution would be something that he would think
Due process being a trial before you.
or a hearing.
Punish,
I mean, it's not necessarily a trial. It
hearing.
depends on the situation. Right. I mean, Trump says he keeps using the term trial, saying we have millions of trials and trials take a long time. He's right. Trials take a long time, much more than a hearing. A hearing might just be, you go before the judge and prove that you're legal. Because right now, if you could be deported without due process, meaning you don't even have a hearing to prove whether you're documented or not. A hearing would at least prove that. That's a far lower legal requirement than a trial. That's something that we'll talk about. But and then the last thing, which I thought was a little interesting and amusing, they talked about having a military parade.
Want some water?
On June 14th, I'm good, which is Flag Day, also happens to be Trump's birthday, which would cost $45 million to put out, to host, where they parade the military equipment around. And Trump's response was, well, it's peanuts compared to the value of doing it. So
those parades are very impressive. On May Day, the Russians have it. France has.
I mean, you seem to see it more in countries who want to, pride and boast about the military
prowess,
capabilities. But here, Trump's saying it's well worth the cost. So anyway, let's start with this notion of due process, because what we've seen happening in the news was undocumenteds being deported. And in particular, there's a case of this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was deported to El Salvador, and the Supreme Court to a prison in El Salvador.
And he's initially from El Salvador.
And allegedly an MS-13 gang member. And the Supreme Court ruled that that the government needs to facilitate his return. So far, Trump and his administration has snubbed their noses at that, refusing to do anything to bring him back. A senator, Chris Van Hollen, went to El Salvador to visit the prisoner, to visit Garcia in prison, and said he's not defending the man, he's defending the rights of this man to due process. So it's an interesting topic, because the guy may very well be a bad guy.
Yeah,
he may very well be a member of a gang, but the question is, should he be entitled to any kind of due process, and should the administration listen to what the judicial branch is imploring them to do? What's your take?
It's interesting that they're making such a major issue of this one guy who it now turns out has a very bad track record, beating his wife, seemingly. They have a video of him transporting a bunch of people that had no luggage and seemed to be paying them. He had a bunch of cash paying them for that transportation to move into this country. But people don't realize They're starting to realize because it's coming out. But Obama deported 300,000 people, far more than Trump.
Yeah, they call him the deporter in chief.
Deporter in chief, right? So, and nobody said, why didn't you do, why didn't you do,
Were they just deported, or were they given hearings or any sort of?
they weren't given
process?
hearings, and it was considered legal. And it is considered legal, although Trump is using the wrong basis. He's doing his executive order and so forth. But they're entitled to 24 hours of after they're found to be here illegally to stay here. But it's impossible to do what some people are saying, that they should have a hearing or a trial, because to do a million hearings like this, or 5 million hearings, the courts would be busy. It's just physically impossible. But anyway, the latest, as I learned about this, is that there's a rule that you could give them 24 hours to make whatever argument they want, and you can do it just based on the fact that they entered the country illegally, and send them out. The question then is why it's so strong against this one guy who's got a track record that's much like Floyd, who had a terrible track record and was held down and died while in the officer's grip for about 10 minutes or something. And the officer has now gone to prison for some 50 years or something. And I find it very strange because it's supposed to be, he's only guilty if it's beyond reasonable doubt. And the defense brought on experts that said it could very well have been, he was held down 10 minutes, yes, but it could be other things that brought about his death, namely he was on drugs, he had physical conditions that could have, so why he got 50 years, it became a real
So just because there are a lot of hearings that would have to be given, does that mean you don't do it?
Yeah, no, you couldn't do it.
So what do you do?
Impossible.
You just ignore the Constitution?
No, I'm saying there is a law that you only have to give them 24 hours and you can send them out. The thing that you can't do, even now, you could take this guy, they're only saying you can't send him to El Salvador. You could send him to Honduras, and that would be okay. So it's not that they kicked him out or that they deported him, because he was rightfully deported. But they're making it a federal issue where they never made it in 300,000 cases with Obama. And that's typical of our current attitude, where anything that Trump is for, Democrats
So how
and
about
the left wing.
So that's a push strategy, push them out. How about the pull strategy of giving them money to self-deport?
That's the
$1,000 and a plane ticket.
That's since
what do you think of that?
Since yesterday.
They say it costs $17,000 to capture, detain, and deport. So you're making you got a $16,000 spread.
Right. And it's voluntary. You're not.
And you may still be able to come back,
Right.
As opposed to if you're caught, you'll never.
No, you only get the $1,000 if you report yourself.
Right, and self-deport. But if you do that, even if you were here illegally, you may be able to come
Right,
back.
'cause
But if you're caught
because
illegally,
you were honest.
if you're not honest, then no matter what, you can never come back.
Right.
So, what do you think of that? Because some people say, why should that's an incentive, for people to
keep coming back and get $1,000 every time.
or it's incentive. I mean, it rewards bad behavior. I should say.
No,
Or does it just, or is
rewards.
it practical and just saves money?
It's a reward because it saves the government. It's doable. It's an incentive, and they'd keep track, hopefully, after they paid him, that he was really.
It seems like.
How do you prove that he?
It seems like
they won't pay him till they learn that he's arrived there.
It seems like a logical, practical approach.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think it's going to work, though.
That's it. We'll see.
Because
it's worth trying.
It is definitely worth trying. Because the reason I don't think it's going to work is I don't think like the people that are here are so concerned about doing the right thing that they would take up this deal. I mean, I think a lot of people are just gonna ignore it because the same reason they didn't care about coming illegally, they won't care about staying illegally.
It depends. You and I may not have the appreciation of what $1,000 means to them. It doesn't sound like a great deal of money, but maybe they've investigated that and think it may work. It's certainly worth trying. Look, remember this. Immigration, this whole issue, was the one reason, in my judgment, that Trump won the election in 2016. Because they all have, everybody who runs for president has the same laundry list. Health care and, and certain payments to the underprivileged, to those at the lowest level, to attract votes by Hispanics and blacks that are part of that group. So he found something that is outside of anything that people ever realized. So, but trying this is a better approach than just taking them and sending them out. But I just learned today by legal scholars and experts on the Constitution and so forth that it's legal to bring them in and send them back out because they came here illegally. But they can't send them to a place like the El Salvador situation because it's supposedly a very vicious, violent.
But you do need to, if they can keep you here a day because you're illegal, you do need to have a chance to prove that you're actually here maybe legally, right? Like if they pick someone off the street and say, we're deporting you because you're here illegally, you should have the opportunity to say, no, I'm actually here legally. Here is my evidence that I'm here legally.
If you could show that, I think you
and I think
they wouldn't deport.
Well, that I don't know. I mean, that's
a lot of
that's
people
what's been
say
happening.
It could happen to you and I. They could pick us up on the street and send us out.
Right. So we don't have a lot of time left. So let's talk about one other. No,
we hardly got into it.
Let's talk about one other thing about incentives, since this issue of self-deportation. Trump is a businessman. He thinks that money can motivate behavior in lots of ways, to do something, to not do something. The observation about the population decline or growth, but limited growth.
Lack of
limited growth of the United States has become an issue.
Lack of population
Lack
growth.
of growth, or lack of enough growth.
As a matter of fact, the very reverse, the diminishment of our
Right.
population.
So after World War II, the birth rate was almost 4 children per woman, and now it's about 1.6 children per woman.
Wow.
And just to maintain a constant population, neither up nor down, you need 2.1 children per woman. So we're significant at 1.6 children per woman. That's a lot less than 2.1.
Has any woman ever had a
0.6,
point one child?
0.1, yeah. So it's a little one. So how do you combat that? Or is that a problem? I guess, first of all, some people would say it's not such a problem because it's people having fewer children means they have more money to spend on other things to keep the economy going. Other people say, no, you need to constantly grow your population base. The
economy can't grow unless you're having an expanding population. You need more workers.
But why do you need the economy to grow? Why can't it just subsist in the
economy doesn't grow, it recedes. People's quality of life recedes.
Why can't it maintain? Why does it have to go down? I mean, if you have fewer people every year, let's say, but those people are creating goods and services to support themselves. If you have this many people doing goods and services for this many people, if you have fewer people, you need fewer goods and services because you have fewer people.
I'm not a population expert, but they're saying economists constantly
I hear that. Yes.
That there won't be enough workers.
So Trump's solution is give people a bonus to have more kids. I think give women medals for having children. They should get medals anyway for raising kids. Right. At least my mother should.
Right. That's a
2 medals. Yeah. Yes,
yeah.
2 medals. One for the kid, one for the husband.
Right.
So do you think monetary incentives could work? And is it a good idea?
I think it's a good idea, and I think it works. At least for some.
I guess it depends how much, too. I mean, I don't know how much. I don't think they were talking a huge amount of money.
I think $5,000.
Yeah, that's not a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Compared to what it costs to raise a kid.
No, and as a matter of fact, it means a lot to those at the bottom of the ladder. And those are the ones that often aren't the ones adequately taking care of the kids they have. So it's incentivizing many of the wrong people to have more babies. That's the problem. Just having a baby, just like
right.
Abortion. They're against abortion, a lot of the free choice, because they should say you're taking a baby's life, you're taking a person's life. But that's only up to the time they give birth. Then after that, those very same children that are brought into to this world are subject to poverty and
pro-life should mean all life, throughout life.
At least during the formative years, But once you give birth, you've fulfilled the obligation of having the baby. So the religious precept of you're not allowed to kill the baby, and you got to bring it into this world because God gave you that opportunity. But He didn't give you the opportunity to bring a child into the world and bring it into suffering, or if you had it from rape or incest, your brother had sex with your uncle, they still want you to have the baby, even though it could ruin your life, it could ruin your.
Well, they'd say give it up for adoption.
There's kids, yeah, but there's kids 14. A lot of these schools in the depressed areas have at the high school level and even before high school level, like a nursery for the kids of kids that themselves are hardly out of the nursery. And not only that, they're angry that the schools give them contraceptives and birth control pills. So they want 14-year-olds and they want people that might be molested and raped by their brother or their uncle or something. That, so women, in my judgment, are right. That should be their choice. You're saving their life, but you're burdening the woman's life forever.
Well, again, unless it's given up for adoption. That's what people would say in that context. If you can't care for the child, give it up for adoption. There's a lot of families, a lot of people who can't have their own children.
No,
you don't have to
I don't think
end the pregnancy. That's the argument.
I don't think there's enough people ready to adopt, say, newly born black kids or some underprivileged kids. They're not saying, they're saying even if the kid's crippled and paralyzed, and you owe it to the kid to bring him into this world. So you're ruining the kid's life. You can't do anything with the kid, and you're ruining the family's life, the wife and the husband and everything. That's an imposition that I don't think religion ever intended that.
Well, as I said when we started, we didn't get too far into 100 days. We have another 100 days worth of discussion, but we've got.
You were wrong about one. You were wrong about one thing.
Just
you
one.
Said it might take, you said it might take another 100 days.
Yeah.
Just to do.
No.
It would take more than another 1,000 or 10,000
That's
days.
true. And by the time we get through another week, we'll have another 100 days of material to discuss.
Do you realize how many books have been written about Trump and his leadership and by both the values of both parties?
Not just books, like how many thousands of hours of airtime and discussion and shows and podcasts and
that's
articles.
That's the miracle of Trump. It keeps it interesting.
Yeah, he does.
There's not a day that I get up and don't find it, that the leading story is something that Trump thought up yesterday. The latest one was putting what do you call it? Tariffs on movies, or having Canada become the 51st state.
How does a tariff on a movie, how will that help bring back jobs to the U.S.?
Because most of the movies are made outside of the United States.
So you can't.
All that they take all their people. They go to Ireland. They go to some third world country.
But don't they still have to employ like SAG members? I mean, you can't. When you make a movie, don't you still have to use like union SAG?
Overwhelmingly, you're using people
non-union,
and natives. Like all of the crowds that you hire, it just costs very much less. Just like goods from China cost very much less. And it's good for Americans. He's saying they don't need it.
A movie ticket's as expensive enough as it is.
Yeah.
It'll cost even more to go to the movies. So much for what you paid for an entire day of movies when you played hooky.
I don't think people go to the movie that much. Most of the income, I think, comes through streaming.
Although
No?
I think not
They
as
still-
much, but it's still,
still-
yeah, that's what they thought, that
Yeah.
once videos came out, it would kill
Yeah.
movies, and all it did was create another big industry.
No, but I'm saying there's not a day that comes. I wake up, I figure that, well, Trump stuffed with everything that he could. What new could he come up with? And then there's movies. There's always something.
Always something, which leads us to another week. So we'll be back, I'm sure. Thank you for the discussion today.
Thank you all for participating, for joining us. I love you all to pieces, and I want you to be happy. And if you're not happy, I'm going to come around to your house and make you miserable. So be sure you follow the instructions in this book, or just what I told you earlier. Be upbeat, be nice, be positive, do nice things for others. Let's make it a better world for everyone, our own immediate family, all our loved ones, our cherished friends, our community, our countrymen, our fellow human beings throughout the earth. And that's something that we should do sooner rather than later, because the world is not sustainable unless we change our behavior. I go into that in a new book I'm writing. We're moving inevitably to the unsustainability of human life on Earth. We're going to destroy each other. And I explain why in the new book I'm writing, which is more of an economics and politics book. It's called What Would You Do If You Were King? It gives you a chance to think about the agenda that you'd propose and try to enact, or that you would advise whoever you vote for to enact, to make this a better country, a better world, to comply with the mandate. Was it the Bill of Rights that says our forefathers encouraged in that document that we should provide life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Declaration of Independence.
Declaration of Independence, right. They don't even give women the independence to decide whether to have a baby or not. That's not independence. And then we moved from life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness to life, liberty, and the pursuit of ever more money. Greed. That's not the proposal that Adam Smith had in mind. He thought capitalism was the way to incentivize people to work for others and deliver what others need at a more attractive price or a better product. And even that, they take an issue with through these tariffs. I think that's terrible. It's backwards. If that works, what year, incidentally, what year was the mercantilism? In the 1800s?
1600s.
1600s?
Yeah.
Mercantilism was when each country wanted to get more gold. Gold was the thing to get more of. That was the currency of the world. And so the way to get more gold in your treasury is to sell more to others and buy less from others, much as Trump is trying to do now. And in due course, everybody withheld buying from other countries and tried to sell more, but the other countries wouldn't agree to buy it because it would deprive them of their gold. So it led to a complete halt of international trade and the realization that that was self-destructive, counterproductive, and so forth. Anyway, God bless you all. I love you. I look forward to seeing you in good health Wednesday a week, next Wednesday, 6:30. Have a great week. Have a great every day of your life, you and all your loved ones. God bless you. Bye-bye.